Welcome back to another episode of the Media Pass. I'm your host, Alex, with my other host, Matt. Matt, as always, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. It's March. If you weren't aware at this point, 22 days in. I still never will understand how like they call it March Madness, but it like takes place like at the back half of the month. I don't know. Just some food for thought. I know why it has to be this way, like because it doesn't want to conflict too much with the NCAA football season. Then you got to give the kids a little bit of a break over winter break. It's funny that we can call them kids now, because we're their superiors in terms of age, physically.
Elders.
Yeah, physically not superior to them, but
right.
That's like a winded way of saying I'm happy to be here with you right now, man.
I'm happy to be here with you too, and I'm more happy to answer some of the questions that we got since the last episode. Real quick, we have something to celebrate, Matt. We have a milestone to kind of just pat ourselves on the back about. We have officially hit 1,000 subscribers on the podcast channel. And
That's
that round
huge.
of applause right there is for the listeners. Thank you guys so much for the support. Really does mean a lot. That like random burst of subscribers that we got like over the last week was really nice. So thank you. We're excited to keep bringing you content like this. Just going to be more and more, and we're hopefully going to just get better and better, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So all that being said, let's answer some questions.
Yeah. This is like our best 3 days basically of the pod. And it's weird because I thought the last episode we were going to do was like way too niche, even like too niche for like our listener base. But no, you guys are phenomenal people. I'm really happy to be a part of your lives in a small way. Let me get my readers on for this. So let's see. Okay. First question. Okay, so this one's kind of funny. He's like, now that you've passed 1,000 subs, who are your top 1,000 NBA players of all time? And it gives us an alternative question because it might take us a little while to answer that one question. Alternatively, what is your favorite sandwich? What's yours, Alex?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm a big fan of the, for my real Jimmy John's fans out there, I like the Club Lulu from Jimmy John's. It's turkey, bacon, lettuce. And then I always add hot peppers, provolone, and the Kickin' Ranch. But I would say that's my 1A. My 1B is Philly cheesesteak from Jersey Mike's.
Okay, wow, we're going restaurant-wise. Okay, I'll go restaurant-wise. For my Michigan State people, I don't know if anyone listens to this podcast that goes to Michigan State, except for maybe some of my friends. But they just do it to clip stuff and make fun of me.
Oh.
Shout out them. They say I never shut them on the pod. But there's a restaurant it's like a bar. It's called Reno's. And they have it's like a mac and cheese, pulled pork, barbecue kind of sandwich.
Ooh.
And it's diabetes basically, but I like it. So that's my favorite sandwich. Good question.
Sounds incredible.
At Shoot Around.
That's the other podcast I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say. It just hit me. I'm like, wait, Alex, don't you know that those people?
Yeah,
that's funny. That's great. DQ Senpei, a guy you don't know, I presume,
I don't think so.
Question to go further in depth for team building. How many of this archetype of non-shooting forward wings can you have on the court without tanking your offense? Would you need 2 all-time shooters, all above average, a mid-range guy? Yeah, I think I'll start this one. I think it's really context dependent. I think, okay, as a general rule, you can get away with, in today's NBA, probably one is the most, one non-shooter, one below average shooter. I think you can get away with 2 like the Heat do if you play really physical and you have like a all league shooter, like they have Duncan Robinson. The Warriors are sometimes able to get away with this, but it can't be more than 1 or 2 for sure. Like the only time you'll see multiple teams, like a team with multiple below average shooters on the court, is usually a pretty bad team.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. You answered it. I have nothing to add.
Thanks, man.
That was spot on.
All right, this one we might disagree on this one. Ian Kernut 335 says, which would you pick to have in your starting lineup? A very good defensive player that gets played off the court because of having no offense, or a very good offensive player that gets played off the court because of having no defense? Now, Alex, I want to start this one because I actually just tweeted about something similar to this the other day. I was thinking about this a lot with Bilal Coulibaly and Grady Dick, who two guys we may or may not talk about today. But I asked on Twitter, who do you think has the higher floor? Because I think they do a great job of encapsulating this thing where it's like you got Bilal Coulibaly, like really good defender, offense is questionable, and then you got Grady Dick, really good offensive player, questionable defense. And for me, and what I've seen, I think about it like Duncan Robinson, Jared Vanderbilt, the kind of thing. And if you listen to the last pod, you'll know that I would probably go with Duncan Robinson in that situation. I think it's easier to hide a below average defender, especially if they have some size on them, a poor defender, if they can provide you that spacing on offense. Plus the league just leans more offense, even with like the new officiating, quote unquote, it still leans towards offense. So right. I think that's where I would go.
Yeah. I think players can be hidden. I think there's some truth to that. And like, if the worst defender on the floor is still providing great offense, it's like, well, you're still probably able to hold water enough. And I think like the difference between the best offense in the league and the worst offense in the league is bigger than the difference between the best defense in the league and the worst defense in the league. So like there's some level of, it's just like offense is more important. And you know, you can live with a bad defender. But if you have a guy that like has zero offense, I mean, we talked about it in the last episode. If you have a guy with zero offense, that's pretty detrimental. You have to be a pretty ridiculous defender to outweigh zero offense, like to the point where I don't think there's a defender in the league right now that has good enough defense to counteract if they had zero offense. Like Rudy Gobert, for all the criticism he gets on offense, if you took away all of his offense, Rudy Gobert's defense is not enough to keep him on the floor right now. Like he would still have to provide some offensive value. It would be a problem if he didn't. I think the same goes for like Bam Adebayo. I think Bam Adebayo is an amazing defender, but if you took all of his offense away and he was just defense Bam Adebayo, then he wouldn't be able to stay on the floor. It just wouldn't happen. But there's guys in the NBA right now who literally play zero defense, but don't get played off the floor. So I think, you can hide bad defense to a certain extent.
Yeah, good call. Here we go. This one's a bit of a big one. Well, real quick before I say that, somebody commented, when Shea starts his podcast, you better be his white guy, Alex. I love that. Oh
yeah, I saw that. That was a funny comment. If Shea wants to start a podcast, I'll happily be the just.
Would you leave this one?
Random white dude? Nah, I'd add it to the plate.
Okay.
If possible, I wouldn't. I would never leave you, Matt. Don't worry.
Thank God, that's good, man. What would you rather do? Leave me hanging, or spend like 4 hours less a week with your wife? She doesn't listen to the pod, man. So just saying, you could say whatever you want here, man. You could speak your truth.
Probably leave the podcast.
Oh, come on.
I'm choosing the political answer.
Whatever. I mean, you saw S come on here. He's basically like, "Oh, how do you manage trade deadline and like being a good husband?" He's like, "Oh, I kind of skipped the good husband part."
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do.
The job's the job. S is a great guy, though.
Them's the breaks. Wait, so what was the question?
Yeah, Side Activist said, what's a super team, as in a big three, that you guys believe would actually work out on the court? A lot of these recent ones have just been too offensively minded with overlapping skill sets. What 3 star tier players would seamlessly fit together? And then he had a bonus question. 2 young stars, 25 and under. What 2 young stars, 25 and under, do you think would win a championship if they teamed up?
You can go first. That's that's a lot to process.
Yeah. So I mean, well, I guess the first question is like, what do you consider a star tier player? I would say like top 25, right?
Yeah. Top 25 to top 30 would probably be where you start losing me on like, but they're an all-star.
Mm-hmm. Now with that in mind, honestly, if you put Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo in like, I don't know, someone like a 3-level scorer who can hold their own on defense. Like,
would you say?
I'd say if you put like Donovan Mitchell in those two, you win an NBA championship.
That almost happened.
Yeah, you win one.
Yeah,
it's basically just put like any of the top 25 players who are like of that Mitchell archetype. So if you put Devin Booker there, Mitchell, Curry, kind of any of those guys, if you put them with Butler and Bam, they'd probably win an NBA championship. Not our guy Dame though. Dame's he's had a bad year. But and then that second one, I don't know. I feel like J-Dub's got to be one of those guys, like under 25 if he teamed up with somebody.
So say you throw. So what was the question?
Like for the bonus
specifics
question
of it. Yeah.
You just say what two guys under the age of 25, if they teamed up right now, would be able to win a championship?
So the obvious
Doncic
answer is Trae Young and Victor Wembanyama.
That's a good one. Is Trae still under 25?
I don't know. He might be 25 now.
Is Luka under 25? I feel like
Luka might be 20. He might be 25, 26. This is just guys Googling things.
Just guys being dudes.
Luka's 25. Trae Young is 25. Okay, so Trae Young doesn't count.
Okay, here.
Let me pull up dunks and threes here. My trusty tool. Say Tyrese Halliburton and Victor Wembanyama, they're winning a championship.
Yeah. Oh, Doncic is under. So we could do Doncic and you could do Doncic and you could do Shea and Victor Wembanyama. You could do Doncic and Victor Wembanyama.
Just like anyone in Victor Wembanyama, sounds like.
Any on-ball creator in Wemby, he probably have a good shot at winning it all. This one's, I'm glad they asked this question. It's like, howdy fellas, howdy back to you, my friend. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of Kuminga? How good do you think he can be in the future? Love the pod. This was Steamy Raymond 7743.
I don't want to rule anything out because, like, obviously anything can happen. Like, spontaneous development is something that we see happen all the time. So, like, I don't want to put a cap on what I think Jonathan Kuminga could be. But, like, the thing that we heard a lot was, like, the Paul George thing. People were like, he's got, like, Paul George potential. I don't really see that. I don't think that's realistic at this point. But also, like, I could see, 21, 22 points per game, high level defense, solid, like, connecting scorer, like, second side creator. That seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I don't think he's an all-star caliber player. Like,
right.
I don't think that's his upside. I just think I don't know. Like, this is going to come off the wrong way. I don't think he has like a really good feel for the game. Honestly, I think he's just like kind of just a wrecking ball, like super great athlete, great play finisher, big body, really good in transition, rebounds, second side, rim protection, all that good stuff. But I mean, I don't see the handle getting there. That's really the big separator, I think, is like for those forwards, the swing skill is like the handle, because the handle is what unlocks the passing and the on-ball creation, all that stuff. And I don't really see him getting there, especially where he is year 3. Like it would be a different thing if it was his rookie year still. Maybe there would still be hope. But the fact that he's year 3 and his handle's kind of still what it is, it tells me that he'll end up being like a really good starter, just not like the all-star level player that I think some people think of him.
Yeah. I think like a more kind of physical version of like 2020 2022 Aaron Wiggins or Andrew Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like what I could see him being.
Oh, another thing is he's not a good shooter, and I don't see that ever happening for him. So that also creates its own problems.
He could have like a shaky I could see his like shooting ending up like as like a shaky 3-point shooter where it's like 34%, like maybe 35%. But yeah, I don't think you would ever be relying on him as like he needs to be getting like spot up reps consistently. Like you'd probably try to avoid that if you could.
Yeah. No, he's a guy we just talked about last pod. He would overcome the non-shooter thing with the physicality, with the freak athleticism and all that stuff. He kind of already does. He plays next to Draymond. Draymond's not a great spacer, and he's still able to coexist next to him. So I actually
like
have
almost like a springier Aaron Gordon.
Yeah. Except for without the, I mean, Aaron Gordon kind of has handle.
Yeah, he's got that little post game that he can go to. I think Kuminga's probably still a little bit. Yeah, more like a like off the catch kind of Aaron Gordon is probably a better way to put that.
Yeah. So there's a rookie we're going to talk about for sure today that I think actually has a higher upside than him. Should I just save that for now?
Yeah, save it.
Okay. Last question.
The watch time boosted.
Okay, I like that. Last question is from Beyond the Arc T, Arc YT. I presume that means YouTube. Appreciate y'all answering my question about the young core you would take between the Magic and Rockets from last pod. Have another question with all the discourse around J-Dub recently. Where would you rank him right now? Y'all recently have become one of my favorite pods to listen to. Alex, as the resident. Oh yeah, thank you for that. As the resident OKC Homer expert analyst, where do you think J-Dub is right now?
So I actually did a top 50 on the shoot around. I have him kind of in that like, this is where I have him, and other people can have him differently. But I think the realm of, I won't say exactly where I have him, but I think a good range where I'm like comfortable with him, and I feel like you can make an argument. I think anywhere from like 34 to like 46, 34 to 46 is kind of where I'm like, cool, I'm good with that. I think any higher you start to maybe have to reach, not necessarily reach, but you have to you have to put a lot of stock in this season to make an argument for higher than that. And like ignore what some other guys have done in the past to maybe earn a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I think when you are factoring just this season and how other guys who have earned like quote unquote benefit of the doubt, if you ignore what they've done in the past, I think J-Dub, you can argue a pretty high ranking for him. I think in the 20s is top 20. I'm not quite there really. I think that's probably pushing it a little bit, but yeah, I think like 34 to 46 is probably where I'm comfortable. That's a very specific range, but it's probably where I'd have him in that range.
Yeah. I've talked about us doing a top 25 pod after the season's over. For me, I've always been kind of the let me see this in the postseason type thing. So I'm going to wait for that before I make any definitive kind of analysis. But if honestly what we have seen this year is like who J-Dub is in the postseason, just the two-way juice he gives you. I honestly think he could be a top 10 player in the NBA someday. I really think that his ceiling is like kind of Jason Tatum. Like I'm not even like, dude, this guy's huge. He's long. He can play like both ways. Great basketball IQ. You want to talk about basketball IQ? He's got basketball IQ up the wazoo. Super active lower body, especially off the ball. I know that's like a really specific thing, but it's really hard to find guys who are still kind of hopping around off the ball. Like they don't like just stand on their 2 feet and relax. Great driver, a lot of counters, vertical athlete, good shooter already, both on ball, off ball. If he's like who he is right now in the postseason, I would say top 25 right now within top 10 peak. I mean, top 10 ceiling. Eventually, not right now, but that'll be a different pod for a different day. Right. Thank you for the questions, though, guys. How many more questions do you think we would need, Alex, to be asked before we'd have to just go full one Q&A? Because we got a lot today. What was it, 6?
I think if we get to 10, if we have 10 questions, then we would have to just do a separate Q&A episode, because otherwise the episodes would either get really, really, really long, or we just have to do a separate episode. Only 9 of you can ask questions. So if you're listening right now or watching, go to the comments and check to see if 9 people have already asked questions. If the answer to that is yes, you're not allowed to ask one, and we won't answer it. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. You can still ask questions, but just know it may not be answered in the next episode. It may have to wait for a Q&A episode, or we'll do like a newsletter or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it on Patreon.
Like a Patreon. Ooh, that'd be fun.
Ooh, now we're getting a little crazy. We'll see. We'll figure it out. That'll be a good problem to have. Let's get into the problem at hand, which is these rookies. So Matt, what are we going to be doing today?
If you did not look at the thumbnail before clicking on the video, we are going to, or the podcast. I always presume our viewers are on YouTube, but a lot of podcasts.
We don't have a ton of viewership on audio,
so we're going to do all rookie teams with a little bit of a twist. We'll start out by just talking about how we scout rookies. And so I think one caveat that goes, like, when we're scouting rookies, we're not scouting to see if they're on an all rookie team this year. We're not really concerned with that too much. It's just like, it's something to do. People like to hear about it. People like their guy on their team to be an all rookie, but we're scouting them for like long-term potential. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about our criteria for how we picked our all rookie teams, which is different, I think, than what the scouting process. And then we're going to give you our all rookie teams, which, by the way, Alex and I did not know this, despite, considering ourselves pretty big NBA fans. Forever, all rookie teams have been positionless. It's kind of crazy.
Yep. I've always thought, because every other award follows like a positional criteria, and they're just like, no, rookies doesn't matter, which I think is fair, because like rookies, each draft class, you kind of never really know how many of each different position you're going to get. So it's like, you might as well just make it positionless. So that's good on the NBA. They got that right. They've been getting that right for years, apparently.
Yeah. They've always known. That's the thing. It's been such a, I swear to God, I've listened to like 50 Zach Lowe pods where he's just complaining about it. And, everyone's kind of like, oh, we need to switch to positions. We've always had this positionless model. It's kind of weird. We just never really, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't get talked about ever.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Alex, you've done videos on Gigi Jackson, Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, Jordan Hawkins. Who else am I missing?
I think Derek Lively. Did you say Derek Lively?
Oh, your guy. No, I didn't say Derek Lively.
Okay. Yeah, done one on him. Almost made a Marcus Sasser video. Haven't gotten there yet.
Love me some Sasser.
But that's I'd say those are the only guys that I've done videos on.
Okay. So what is your process when you're watching these guys and creating a video?
I would say probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for is like, there's a certain level. One, like, what is your role? Like, what are you being asked to do? Obviously, like a Victor Wembanyama is being asked to do a lot more than a Derek Lively. A Chet Holmgren is being asked to do a lot more than like a Jordan Hawkins. So really what I'm looking at is like, what is your role and how well are you executing that role? And then there's like also the factor of within your role, what flashes are you showing of being able to do stuff outside of that role? Because like, even if you're a role player and you have a specific role, there are still opportunities usually where you're able to show flashes, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. So for like Derek Lively, occasionally like putting up a mid-range jumper or something like that, and maybe spacing out certain areas of the floor a little bit, a la like Jarrett Allen, something like that. How much are you occasionally doing that? Is it working? For like a Brandon Miller, how much are you kind of leveraging your scoring into passing? Because like right now he's more of a shot creator and, floor spacer, and then like attacking off the catch and creating off the catch for himself. But really it's not a ton of passing or anything like that. So like how many flashes are we seeing there? So really it's just like Jordan Hawkins is another example where, yeah, we know you're going to light it up off of screens and just toss up really good 3-pointers and make them at a solid rate. Especially when you're coming off handoffs and off screens, stuff like that. But are you kind of punishing defenses for being too aggressive, fighting over those screens and attacking and curling off those screens, and either scoring that way or passing that way after collapsing a defense, like stuff like that? I'm looking for, okay, you can do a roll. Awesome. What else are you doing? Are you showing that you can have an expanded role, or are you just so good at a specific role that you're going to be on a court no matter what?
Yeah, I think one thing, and you pretty much hit it on the nail, is like, I know whenever you use the term, you use archetypes, you lose nuance, right? That's important to understand, but they're still very instructive. All right. And so I kind of look at a player, like, let's look at Derek Lively, right? He's a great example of this. What's Derek Lively's archetype? He's a rim running, rim protecting 5, right? So then you ask yourself, what's the best like rim running 5 like ever, right? You start to think in your head, like, who is it? It's probably Anthony Davis, is my guess, right? That kind of archetype. And so you're like, okay, so like, what would it take for him to get to Anthony Davis's level? And then does he have something that could make him? Because obviously, like, players like go beyond archetypes all the time. Nikola Jokic, beyond his archetype, right? So it's like, does he have anything that would help him go beyond that, right? And then you also ask yourself, if he didn't get any better, like, how good would he be right now? So that's kind of how you get to the ceiling and floor of it. And then after that, you kind of get a little bit more realistic. You're like, okay, so, I think both you and I can agree Derek Lively's probably not going to be Anthony Davis, right? So you probably get down a little bit. You're like, maybe I could see like a Tyson Chandler. If it all clicked for him, I could see like a Tyson Chandler type player for him. And then on the low end, you're like, okay, if Derek Lively doesn't get any better, what's that? Off the top of my head, I can't. Honestly, it's kind of like Daniel Gafford. If he doesn't, if he'd probably just be that, which is still like, which means he has a really high floor, by the way.
Yeah.
But so then you're like, okay, so this is where my ranges are. So like, this is my floor, this is my ceiling. And then you use like little variables. And I think each person leans on different things. We all have different experiences. We've all watched different film. Like, so it's like, we're all leaning on that and trying to figure out, okay, which pathway is probably the most reasonable for him. And it's usually somewhere in the middle of that. So like somewhere in the middle of whatever Tyson Chandler and Daniel Gafford is. But yeah, another thing, I have a cool little stat I've been keeping track of the last 2 years. So you mentioned flashes, right? I read a book a couple of years ago. His name is Dr. Shea. It's called, I can't remember his full name. Brilliant guy, right? It's called Basketball Analytics, Spatial Tracking Era, right? And he posits that since rookies are inherently inconsistent, right? When we're measuring them, we should just look at their high-end flashes, because the goal is that they eventually become consistent and they consistently become the player they are in their high-end flashes, right? So measuring that's a little bit murky. I still don't have a great way for measuring it. I think the best way I've stumbled upon so far is looking at every rookie's 10 best game scores, right? Game score is a metric that Basketball Reference uses. It's just like a all-in-one, one-game metric. EPM does something similar. And honestly, after looking through the best EPM scores and the best game scores, it's pretty much the same games. So I'm just going to stick with game score because it's a little bit easier to get a hold of. But yeah, so looking at the average of their 10 best game scores, based on that, here is the top 10 rookies so far this season. I'm just going to share this. This is not my list. I just figured I would share it since you mentioned the flashes. So Victor Wembanyama is number 1. Holmgren is number 2. Brandon Miller is number 3. At number 4, we have Keontae George. At 5, we have G.G. Jackson. At 6, it's Jaime Jaquez Jr. At 7, we have Ausar Thompson. At 8, we have Brandin Podziemski. At 9, we have Ausar Thompson. And then tied for 10, I thought this was a little funny, is Trace Jackson Davis and Derek Lively. Exactly tied for 10. Now this does bias towards players who get more minutes. So factor that in. But I just thought that was a fun little tidbit to share.
It's funny because so some notable kind of, I guess, quote unquote snubs. Let's say that those 11 players were the all rookie teams, theoretically. Some notable snubs would be Duop Reith, Tumani Kamara. Some might argue he deserves to be on an all rookie team. We'll probably discuss that. I don't know if I'm there. Cason Wallace, Cam Whitmore. Trying to see who else. I think Marcus Sasser. I probably wouldn't have him. Well, we'll get to that. But I think Marcus Sasser is another guy who's like has been very, very good in his specific role, but probably isn't getting the minutes or the usage that he needs to kind of get into that kind of game score discussion. But the guy who really jumped out the most there to me is Keontae George. Are you surprised to see him?
No, I was surprised about that. But you know who I was surprised to not see on that list? I don't think you named him.
Who?
Who is the guy that everyone was throwing a fit about the Charlotte Hornets selecting Brandon Miller over?
Oh, Scoot. Yeah, Scoot. I'm a little surprised, but I'm also not. You know,
I thought that was bookmark that because I'm like, you want to hear something cool about this stat? Last year I did the same thing. Jalen Williams finished over Paolo Banchero. He was number 1 in the stat. So wow. Look at him now. Look at Jalen Williams now, man.
We're not gonna do the Paolo J-Dub thing on the pod.
That's dude. Ooh, that would be such a good episode of the debate series. That'd be such a great episode.
Pencil it in. If we hit when we hit 1,500 subscribers, then we'll do the Paolo J-Dub episode. But so Keontae George, I was surprised. Trace Jackson Davis. I think Trace Jackson Davis has been pretty good. I'm actually not surprised to see him there. But other than that, Ausar was on there. Ausar Thompson was on there. And I think those are really the only guys that I'm like, the guys that I named are the only ones I'm really surprised weren't on there. Obviously, your guy, Bilal Coulibaly. Other than that, I mean, Scoot, yeah, Scoot's obvious. But I mean, EPM wise, he's like, I think, bottom 6 percentile. He's 6 percentile on EPM, which is just, that's tough. He's had a tough shake.
First percentile in true shooting.
Ugh, that's rough. And I think he's going to be fine. This is another thing that I think is worth talking about is I saw somebody, it might've been you that somebody tweeted about it. I don't know who, being bad as a rookie guard is like not uncommon. If you're bad as a rookie guard, it's pretty normal. Especially if you have the responsibility that a guy like Scoot Henderson has, where he kind of had like the expectation that, you're going to facilitate the offense. You're going to be the big driver, collapsing defenses, advantage creation, et cetera, et cetera. The shot hasn't been there for him this year. And overall just had a tough shake of it. And I don't think like the book is closed on Scoot Henderson. I think anyone who's like, I give up on Scoot Henderson, he's a lost cause, he's going to be bad. Like there are certainly things that you can look at and be like, okay, this is concerning. But also, like you said, the flashes where you see the best of what this guy can be, building the consistency is like, is it going to be possible for this player to build consistency, or is that just completely out of the realm of possibility? That's where the discussion I think is worth having.
But it's interesting. I think this is really good, like using it to compare players that play the same role, right? Like, so you can compare, we'll say Bilal Coulibaly's, his 10-game best game score average to Ausar and Ausar Thompson, right? Because they're similar type players. So with Keontae and Scoot, especially two players, because like they're going to have a lot of fat. They have a lot of fat in their games if you watch them, right? And so they're going to mess up a lot. Their numbers are going to look bad, and they do look bad. But the thing is, with those two, you're looking really at the flashes, and the fact that Keontae's flashes look a lot better than Scoot's right now. I'm not going to say anything definitive, but put a little pin in that. Bookmark that one.
Yeah. And I don't think that's even as much of a diss on Scoot as it probably sounds. I think it's more of, and this is something I think people have talked about with Keontae in college, is like the possibility of what he could be is really, really good. A lot of people were like, Keontae George is the steal of this draft. Like, holy cow, he's going to be insanely good. I remember watching him at Summer League being like, holy cow, this guy's going to be insanely good. But where the problem lies and why the draft is a crapshoot a lot of the time is like, it's unrealistic to have taken Keontae George second overall, just being like, oh, the best of what he can be is attainable. Like, you're gambling on that. That's a big gamble for any franchise. And with Scoot, it seemed like less of a gamble. The high end flashes were more consistent when you look at what he was doing in the G League. So you're like, okay, it's more realistic that this will be attainable and be a consistent goal for him to actually reach. Whereas Keontae George, it's like, yeah, the 99th percentile of his ceiling is really, 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 really good, but it's unrealistic to expect that. So that's where it's like, okay, the difference between Keontae George and Scoot Henderson, it's like Keontae George is kind of reaching that X percentile where the question was, is that attainable? Are those flashes realistic to expect eventually? And now it's like, well, maybe they were, which is why a lot of people thought he was a big steal.
Yeah. Now, really quickly, so before we start to talk about our all rookie teams, for me, what I do is I just pick the 10 best rookies. Like, who would be, if I was in a playoff series, who are my 10 best? Like, I'm not really forward facing with that. So we talked about the flashes part. We talked about how that factors into our evaluation. But for me, I don't factor in those flashes for all rookie teams because I'm pretty straight and narrow. Like, I want the 10 best players right now. That's my all rookie team. I think that's a different conversation if we were doing 10 best ceilings right now.
Right. Yeah. And this is a philosophy thing with like the nature of awards. With rookie teams, I think it is unfair to the rookies in the NBA to say like, oh, okay. Like, I'm trying to think, like Cason Wallace, for example. Cason Wallace is a great example. I think that I got to be careful with who I pick. Let's say who's been a good rookie, but like hasn't been better than Cason Wallace is what I'm saying. So like there's let's say Anthony Black, for example. Like, the expectation is that Anthony Black will eventually be better than Cason Wallace, but Cason Wallace has been better this year. Cason Wallace, if I were picking my all rookie teams and I had to choose between a Cason Wallace and an Anthony Black, I'm choosing Cason Wallace because Cason Wallace has been better this year. I'm not picking my all rookie teams based on who I think will be better in the future. I'm picking my all rookie teams based on who is better right now, because it is all rookie teams. It's not all best players going forward teams. Yeah.
All potential teams.
Yeah. I think that happens a lot with rookie discussions. I think it happens a lot with rookie of the year discussions. Not necessarily this year. Victor Wembanyama is the rookie of the year. I think you can't really delude yourself into thinking otherwise at this point. I'm kind of like, yeah, the Chet Holmgren train, it's not happening. Pack it in.
There was a time.
There definitely was. I think through like the first 25 games of the season, it was like, yeah, I think Chet's the rookie of the year. And then 25 games passed and it's like, okay, well, that was fun. We have that. I'll hang that banner. But anyways, getting into it, just to clarify, yes, this is not forward facing. This is right now.
Two fun facts. One, did you know if when they're voting for the all rookie teams, if two guys are tied for the final spot, they just add a person to that all rookie team? So they have like 6 guys. That. Yes.
I think that's a good way to go about it.
We might have to do that. We might, but that was one thing. And then the other thing is, I'm pretty sure only 4 players this season have won Rookie of the Month because there's been all 4 of them have won it twice.
Yeah.
Do you know who those 4 players are?
It's Wemby, Chet, Brandon Miller had a good stretch.
Yep.
And then was it Gigi Jackson?
No, it was Juan Wick, man. Juan Wick, Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Oh, duh. He's just so freaking old. I forgot.
Yeah. No, yeah.
No, but, he's great. He's going to be on this list. But yeah, I just, he's so seasoned that like I didn't even think about him. But yeah, he's definitely, that makes sense.
So I guess the easiest way to start, because we know Victor and Chet are on our first team all rookie. Are the other 2 guys I just named also occupying that list?
Brandon Miller and Jaime Jaquez?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I think
so that's
those are
4.
givens. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have our 4. Those are 4 guys who, I mean, obviously Wemby and Chet would be like integral parts of a postseason series right now. They're both, I mean, Wemby's top 25 player in the league right now. Chet's a top 50 player in the league right now. I think Miller, just as a spacer with his size, if you like put him in like that MPJ role, like he would start on playoff teams, I feel like at this point. Jaime Jaquez already starts on a playoff team pretty much, plays big minutes for a playoff team. So that's the 5th guy I have is another guy who starts on a playoff hopeful team right now. Again, I think we're going to name a lot of guys who have more upside than him.
I think we're still thinking of the same person, but go ahead.
Yeah, you're thinking of a guy whose dad follows me on Twitter, actually.
Yeah. Yep, we're thinking of the same
Brandin
person.
Podziemski.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was on my list.
I like, he's your 5th guy for the first team?
Yeah, so my question to you would be,
Do we need to add somebody?
No. Well, yes. So basically my question is, if not Brandin Podziemski, who do you think has the best argument to be in that 5th spot over him?
Yeah, who was I agonizing over? So one thing I'll say I did a 30-game cutoff. You had to have played at least 30 games, right? And this guy is cutting it super close. And this is the guy I was alluding to earlier, who I actually think has a higher ceiling than Jonathan Kuminga. But that would be one Gigi Jackson. I think go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So it's funny to me because he's dubbed as like a raw, like project player, but I'm like, his offense, like he's already such a good shooter, spacer. He has size. He can attack closeouts. He plays. So here's another Naruto reference. He plays basketball like drunken fist Rock Lee. That's how he looks. I've never seen any, because I keep trying to find a comp for him. I have an article coming out about him on Monday. Keep trying to find a comp. I've never seen anyone move like him before, ever. It looks so weird, but it works. He's really good in transition. Have you ever seen this guy sprint in transition, like as a transition finisher?
He's stupid fast.
Yeah, stupid. It looks so funny when he runs too. Pretty good on-ball defender.
He's built so bizarre.
Mm-hmm. He did a good job against Shea the other day. I don't know if you noticed that. He did a pretty good job against Shea. Good on-ball defender. I don't like his off-ball instincts, but he's got good length. Yeah, I would say right now, dude, like he'd play in a playoff series. And I would still take Podziemski just because I think just much better off-ball defender, much better like team defender, better passer.
Good connector. Yeah. I think he's just more like got better feel. Is probably
refined. He's more refined.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I was going to say more about Gigi Jackson, but I think it is funny how like he had the reputation of like, oh, he's going to be a project. It's going to be rough. And like, no, he's probably been one of the most NBA ready guys out of all of the rookies. So all of that being said, are we penciling him in for second team?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say, like, Alex, I'm not going to lie. Like, I doubted you, like, last month when you made a video. Because I kept hearing all this stuff about Gigi Jackson putting up all these big games. I'm like, man, he's playing on this bum-ass Memphis team. Like, they have nobody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, of course, somebody's got to score the points. Like, this is just another Brandon Jennings situation, right? I'm like, then Alex made the video. I'm like, man, Alex got fooled. Got fooled by the hype. And then I was, like, 2 weeks ago, just started really digging.
You're fooled by the hype.
I started digging the film. Like, this guy can play, man. This guy is a hooper. Yeah, I see the vision.
Never wrong, just early. So who would you be leaning next? This is where I would say I'm going to defer to you a lot. If I have very just like strong convictions about some of these, I'll let you know. But this is where it kind of opens up for me. And I'm like, there's a lot of guys you can make a good case for.
Yeah. So you're going to find this funny just because because you kind of mentioned him. You cited him earlier, and I don't think I made like the most like excited face, but I was 100% with you on this guy. He's a big, for the people who know Eric Weiss out there, our good friend, shout out Eric Weiss. Eric Weiss is huge on this guy. Shout out to him for thinking that way. But I think Cason Wallace is like a pretty put him in pen second team all rookie this year.
Absolutely. I am 1000% with you. No bias.
Yeah. I go through these phases. Like it happens to me. Like it's like the seasons change, right? Like you start out the year, you're like, okay, maybe Josh Giddey's their fifth guy. Okay. No, it's Isaiah Joe, the plus minus king. Okay. Wait, no, it's Andrew Wiggins. I mean, that's his name. Wait, no, it's
Aaron Wiggins.
Aaron Wiggins. It's Aaron Wiggins. And then I'm like, oh, they got Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward's definitely the fifth guy in their closing lineup. Now I'm kind of at that phase where I'm like, it's actually Cason Wallace. He's ready to go. Super strong, feisty point of attack defender. Good off-ball instincts.
You know what meme this is? Where you said you've been doing like the entire year of like, who's the fifth guy? It's that meme where it's the astronaut looking at Earth and the other astronaut has a gun behind him. And it's like, Cason Wallace is the fifth starter in OKC's closing lineup, and it's like always has been. It's like that's what this awesome. Is. We need to make the meme. I'm gonna mark this and make sure I put that in over the video.
Please do, because I don't know how to Photoshop yet. I'm still working on that skill.
I need you to start making the thumbnails.
Oh God.
Anyways, back to Cason Wallace.
Yeah, no, he's ready. Great shooter, great spot up shooter. I did not see that coming. I scouted him a little bit this summer. Did not see that development coming. Great shooter. Still, he needs to work on his off the dribble game a little bit. His playmaking, connective tissue passing. That's why I didn't have him like in the first team. But no, he's pretty good. They know how to pick him in OKC, man.
They do. And the other thing I'll say, bet on Kentucky guards. Somebody posted a picture the other day, and it was like the Kentucky guards of like the last, I think like 10 years, something like that. And if you draft a Kentucky guard, it has like a 90% hit rate on just like quality NBA player or higher. It's like, oh yeah, you don't know who to draft? Who is the guard? Who is a point guard or shooting guard for Kentucky? There you go. There's your draft pick. So
their guy this year is good, isn't he? Who's their guard? He's a pretty big.
They've got Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd. It sounds like Reed Shepherd's probably going to end up getting drafted. I don't know. This is where my draft knowledge is subpar at best. But like, I know some people really love Rob Dillingham. Some people really love Reed Shepherd. I've heard Reed Shepherd mocked all the way up at top 5. And I'm like, sure. I don't know. I'm not a draft guy. You can tell me anything,
NBA, buddy. Yeah. I honestly don't think there's a point like for us to scout a college player and tell you know what team they're playing on. Like in the NBA. I don't know. I understand the reason why there's like millions of dollars devoted into scouting. Like, so I understand the point of it. But for at least mine and your purposes, maybe we'll change that this year. Who knows? So that's my 2. Do you have, let me think, anybody else I'm strong about? Because I'm supposed to be in the lead right now. I'm lead Mike right now.
I'm gonna put a nod on Derek Lively.
I knew you were gonna go there. He was my last one in. You know that?
Okay. So now I'm curious who your others are, but I think regardless of where on the like hierarchy, I think Derek Lively deserves to be here. Advanced numbers are a testament to his impact. He is a starter / off the bench, depending on the day, apparently, for a team that is probably going to be in the playoffs. Offensively, he is what he is just in terms of his role. But defensively, I think he does a lot for Dallas's defense. I think, honestly, and I say this as someone who was probably a little higher on Daniel Gafford's defense than I should have been. And this is also just a testament to how good of a defender Derek Lively is. I think Derek Lively has been a better defender than Daniel Gafford. And that's as a rookie. So I really like Derek Lively. I've been high on Derek Lively since he was in college, but besides the point, I think he's definitely deserves to be on an all-rookie team, regardless of where you think he should fall.
So, I mean, I'm on the right. Like I just said, he has a really high floor as a player, right? But like my thing is like, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, he's playing with Luka Doncic. Like that helps. That helps a lot.
Right.
It helps a lot more than most of these rookies. So I guess the thing I was trying to answer when I was going through this is like, how good is he of a defender? Because that has nothing to do with Luka Doncic, really. I mean, it might hurt him, honestly. And defensive indicators are pretty good. Minus 4.6 diff on shots contested within 6 feet of the rim. Here's a nice stat. The Mavericks are in the 86th percentile in rim frequency when he's on the floor. The on-off difference when he's on and off is 94th percentile. I'm sure that'll go down a little bit the more Gafford logs some minutes. But so
it's funny you mentioned that metric, because when I did a video earlier in the season on Derek Lively, that was a stat that jumped out, was like, oh yeah, like there's indicators of good rim deterrence here.
The only thing I worry about with that is the on-off one I worry about is just because like it really is backup contingent. But the fact that just raw frequency when he's on the floor being 86th percentile in the entire league tells me like, he's a pretty good defender. Defender. EPM, 78th percentile defensive EPM. EPM is a wonderful one-number metric, probably the best you can get publicly. So at the end of the day, I still went with him. And I'll talk to you about the two guys that I was really agonizing over, and maybe we'll put it like as an appendage of the second team. There's two guys. I'm going to name like 7 or 8 honorable mentions, but there's two guys that really grinded my gears. But yeah, he's pretty good. He would start on most. I don't know. He wouldn't start on most teams because there's a lot of good centers, but he'd start on some. But yeah, he's playoff ready.
So real quick, let's talk about our first team. So we had, because I'm going to put this on the screen because I know that's something people have requested for our previous list. So we have Wemby, Chet, Brandon Miller, Jaime Jaquez. Who was our fifth for
Podziemski.
First team? Podziemski?
Yeah, we both have the
right.
same.
And after that, we have our second team, and we're only at...
We put 3 so far.
Okay. And it was Cason Wallace, Derek Lively...
GG
Jackson. Not necessarily in that order, just names. All right. So we got 2 more spots, maybe 3 if we want to get fancy with it.
So you referenced him earlier. I actually had the chance to, I got to speak to him last week. It was really, really nice guy. But I mean, before our conversation last week, I felt this way about him. I think right now, like Marcus Sasser is probably a top 10 player in this rookie group. I think just the pull-up shoot, like honestly, arguably the most hard to find individual skill in the NBA is pull-up shooting. And he's already a really good pull-up shooter. And just that with the handle, the passing, he's got the best passer rating in the class right now, even above Keontae George. Actually second best behind Vasily Micic, by the way. Honorable mention right there.
Technically a rookie, yeah.
Yeah, he's having a good year. But I think he could just easily be like a third guard for a playoff team, like play that like Jordan Poole 2022 Warriors kind of role for most playoff teams. And he plays really hard on defense. The only reason his defensive EPM looks as bad as it is because he's small in a league that favors giants. And he often plays the 2 guard. He's usually playing next to like Ivy. He doesn't, like the Pistons don't put like a ton of size around him. So I think he's a better defender than that. He played at Houston, and Calvin Simpson will not play you if you don't play defense. And he played 75% of their minutes his senior year. So he clearly plays defense. Yeah, I like him. What did you think of that?
I think I'm with you. The big thing with him, like you said, is the pull-up shooting. It's pretty ridiculous. Of all players in the NBA that have attempted at least 3 or at least 1 pull-up 3 per game, he's like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's the 12th most efficient in the NBA, and that's among 81 players. So really good pull-up 3-point shooter already. Really good pull-up shooter in general. I that's just something that like that's pretty valuable, having just like a scorer like that. And he's efficient. He's a good defender. And he's had as much success as he's had in a bad situation. So like that's got to count for something. I'm pretty good with him being here, even though there's probably guys who have been better or not that will be better. There's definitely guys that will be better, but this season specifically, very under the radar, very good season.
You know, I'm gonna be honest. I think he has his best outcome is All-Star. I think he comes from that tree. He's a lot younger. He's a lot older than a lot of those guys, but like he comes from like the Darius Garland, Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
I mean Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, Tyrese Maxey, like that family of like, you know, just really good offensive little guards who like become like low end all-stars. I know Jalen Brunson's a little bit better than that nowadays, but I don't know. If you look at like his statistical profile on Cerebro Sports' global search tool, it's very similar to young Steve Nash. Again, not saying he's going to reach those heights, but it's like there's like, whereas like some of the other, like honestly, I would say Marcus Sasser has a higher upside than GG Jackson. That's going to sound crazy because just how much I was raving about GG Jackson, but just with the fact like handle is such a hard thing to get, and like Sasser's handle's already at such a good place. And like I said, it opens up the pull-up shooting. It opens up the passing. It opens up the Nash dribbles and the paint touches and all that stuff that, you know, makes an offense go round and round. I think GG Jackson has a better chance of being the better player, but I think Sasser's upside is higher, which is funny because he's older.
Yeah. And I'm going to start pushing back on this when I see it. Like a lot of people are like, he can't handle the ball. Like people talk about a player, like insert any random player here. And they're like, well, his ball handling is not great, but that's something he can, you know, they'll develop that, or like, you know, he'll get better at it over time. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Like that's pretty tough to develop. Like becoming a competent ball handler is different than becoming a high level ball handler. And like we were talking with Jonathan Kuminga, it's like, it's not really realistic for him to become a high level ball handler at this point, because if he does, then we're talking about like a potential all NBA caliber player. Because that, like you said, unlocks like the passing, it unlocks on ball creation, like all sorts of stuff. You get a ton of different pathways when you can handle the ball at a high level. Being a competent ball handler, like 1, 2, 3 dribbles off the catch, attacking a closeout, is different than you're bringing the ball up the floor and creating for yourself off the dribble, like in isolation. There's a massive difference in that. And we see that more commonly in like the Darius Garland types. And, you know, it's not something that can be taught very easily. It would take a lot to learn that.
And this goes back to the whole Jaylen Brown thing, where it's like, you have to understand, like everybody improves in every non-athleticism based like skill every year. So it's like, not only do you have to improve, but you have to improve above what the average NBA player would for the amount of reps they're getting, you know? And that's why it's like, you know, some people always preach for like letting young guys kind of take their lumps and, you know, get their reps in, because that stuff matters. And if you can get them more repetitions than the average player, you have a better chance of them seeing that rapid growth and handle. That's why like the Paul George thing is so special, and it shouldn't be like the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the benchmark for every one of these kind of players in that archetype. It's like they're all going to develop this handle. Like Paul George learning how to become the ball handler he's become is like, it's very, very rare. And it's why he, you know, peaked as a top 10 player in the NBA in the NBA. Unless he has Brandon Miller, then he is a top 10 player in NBA history. But
fair enough.
Yeah. So we're both good with Sasser at 9.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So last spot, let's talk before you say who you would have here. Let's talk about some names that we haven't talked about yet. And I got 2 off the top of my head. You have the Thompson twins, who have not been mentioned yet. They've been mentioned. They haven't been mentioned in kind of like our discussion thus far. Trace Jackson Davis, we've talked about him. Duop Reith, we've talked about him. Cam Whitmore. The Rockets got some good rookies that may or may not make the list. other than that, I think those are the names that I feel like we're kind of pulling from at this point. Maybe Keontae George. I don't know where you're kind of at in terms of flashes relative to actual performance this year. Although he has improved a lot over the season. But yeah, how are you feeling on this last spot?
With Keontae George, he plays a little bit defense, a little bit too much like Jordan Poole for my liking right now, and that's not a good sign. So I'm going to leave him off for now, although I acknowledge that it is impressive when Utah was good that he was able to get minutes on that rotation. So that's important. One other guy I think you forgot about that he was my 12th guy. I think he's been the 12th best rookie this year is Toumani Camara.
He's a good one.
Dude, if the Suns had him right now, they would be in such a better spot. Like he's exactly what they need. He's a giant forward dude, have you seen the way he moves? He moves so balletic for somebody that size, but he's huge, has great length. He put Zion Williamson in the torture chamber this weekend. So here's what happened. So he started out the game on Zion Williamson. Okay, we're going to clip this. Can we turn this into a clip?
Yeah.
Starts out the game on Zion Williamson. Zion's, he's doing the thing he does usually early in the game. Let's let BI kind of do his thing. Let's let CJ do his thing. We don't all really fit together that well, so it's kind of awkward, whatever. And then Kamara goes to the bench. BI goes to the bench, so it's Zion's turn to run the show. And Zion just beasts. He just dookies on. Have you ever heard the term dookie?
Yes.
Yeah, he just dookies on the entire Portland lineup, right? Destroys them, manhandles them. Kamara and he continues to do it for the start of the second quarter. Then Kamara comes in, and then Zion gets put in the dog pound. Zion's got nowhere to go anymore. Like he is just, and then Kamara comes out, and Zion's like, okay, cool, I get to work again, I get to cook. And then Kamara comes back in, and it's like lockdown. Like, I've never seen an individual effort like that on Zion Williamson. He's like the perfect combination of length, like speedy footwork, lateral agility, strength. Like he is. Nekias Duncan, shout out to him. He already has Kamara on his long list of all defensive players, and I think there is a very good chance that he is an all defensive player someday. Like he is so good. And then offensively, the cool thing about him, our buddy Chip Jones brought this up in a group chat we're in, that he can finish with both hands. He can attack closeouts, finish with both hands. I know he's like an older guy, so obviously his skills are going to be a little bit more refined than most, but he's really good.
Yeah. I think that's a good shout. I admittedly have not watched a ton of Blazers this year, but everything I've heard has been like, we got him in the Dame deal. Sweet. This was awesome.
He might end up being the best piece they got from obviously Drew Holiday, but like in terms of the actual players they got, like he's probably more valuable to them than Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon at this point. Yeah.
Because Rob Williams' health is a major concern at this point. So quit beating around the bush. Tell me who you got in your fifth spot.
Yeah, well, I'm almost 100% sure you'll be able to guess the last name of this player.
Do I have is it one of the Thompson twins?
Yeah. You'll be able to guess it because you have a better chance of guessing it.
Yeah, I was going to say just the odds are in my favor here.
No, like we should really petition for. I think there is one that is better than the other one right now, and I think honestly it'll probably stay that way. But if we were going to add an extra guy to this, it would make sense. It's the one that comes from the same like biological tree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Amen Thompson would probably be the 10th guy.
I was wondering which one you were going to go with. I think because Amen Thompson was not getting playing time earlier in the season. He was in the G League for a while. And Ausar was getting reps in the NBA and he looked fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Ausar has been great. But you look at what Amen has been doing on a potential playoff team. I just think he's probably a little bit ahead of the schedule relative to his twin brother. But yeah, I think if there was going to be a sixth guy to have on the list, I think Ausar Thompson would probably be him.
Yeah, I think you mean, oh yeah. Yeah, you said the right thing. Sorry. But the thing with him, I think Ausar is the more freakish defender, right? But I don't think it's going back to the conversation we had last week where I don't think it's enough to where it makes up for the fact that Amon I said it right. Amen.
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 I know some people say Amen. Some people say Amen. I honestly don't know how to say it. If you go to Basketball Reference, it says the pronunciation is Amen. But I don't know if that's accurate. Anyways.
It was funny. I actually got to interview Ausar a couple months ago, and I was talking to one of the people that works for the Pistons, and I was like to him, like, how do I say Ausar? He's like, you should probably figure that out before you talk to him. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It probably would help that I pronounce this fantastic young gentleman's name properly. But anyway, so yeah, I meant like Ausar being a slightly better defender, it just doesn't move the needle enough because of like he's slightly better at all the things you need him to be on offense: the rolling, the cutting, the screening, the offensive rebounding. He's also got the on-ball juice, something Ausar doesn't really have yet, it just gives him a little bit more of an edge moving forward. And honestly, that little edge, like especially if we're talking right now, probably gives him a better chance of being not played off the floor in a playoff series than it does for Ausar.
I'm with you 100%. You put it eloquently.
So do we think there's enough of an edge between? So do you think there's anybody in the second team right now that Ausar is tied with?
I think the only one that you could make an argument that he kind of deserves to be in discussion with would be like, it's not Derek Lively. To me, it's not Cason Wallace. It would be between, I couldn't even say Gigi Jackson.
No,
just because he's done so much.
He's there.
Marcus Sasser's really the only one that I'm like, if you were just going off like overall burden, I think you could maybe make the argument that Ausar has like more on his plate. But yeah, I think I'm comfortable with our second team. I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, cool. I'm with you. So honestly, the one I was debating the most was actually Derek Lively, just because I was like, how much of this is just him being with Luka?
Well, so my counterpoint to that would be Dwight Powell. Dwight Powell, it's like he's with Luka and he's not doing what Derek Lively does. I think what Derek Lively is able to do alongside Luka, yes, he benefits from it immensely, but like Dwight Powell benefited immensely, but he's still not able to do what Derek Lively does, even on the offensive end. I think, Dwight Powell is probably a little bit better of a passer. I think that's one thing Dwight Powell has always been a little bit underrated as, but also it's like, dog, you just can't, you're not able to finish sometimes. Like you'll get offensive rebounds and you don't find anybody, and then it's just a backcourt violation. Like the things that Dwight Powell is better than Derek Lively at it's just not enough to like move the needle to where I'm like, Derek Lively isn't just benefiting from having Luka. I think Luka benefits from having Derek Lively in a way that Luka didn't benefit from having like Dwight Powell next to him. Do you get does that make sense?
No, 100%. I love the way you explain that right there. And I don't know. I'm just so fortunate to talk to you about basketball, man. Also, I think we should make this like we should make this a recurring theme. You've done it 2 episodes now in a row where you just randomly just ripped somebody's life apart, just like a below average NBA player. You did it last week with Josh Giddey. That one was like, I'm like, Alex, we need to talk afterwards because there's something. Did you have a bad day or something, man? Like, what is going on?
Jeez. And listen, I think people are really hard on Dwight Powell. It's just one of those situations where like, man, you should not be playing this much. It's not your fault. They're asking. It's like I feel for him. It's like, yeah, people are so hard on you because like you should not be playing this much, dude.
You ever seen that clip? The Doc Rivers clip? It's not Blake's fault. It's not his fault.
That's a great Doc Rivers impression. Especially after like a playoff series where he's been yelling a lot and you can tell he's losing his voice. That's spot on. Yeah. So honorable mentions. I think Ausar Thompson I think if you wanted to have a 6th spot, you could go Ausar Thompson as the 6th spot. The other one would be probably like a Trace Jackson Davis. Obviously, Tumari Kamara. Cam Whitmore would probably be another honorable mention. There's one I'm missing. Who am I missing?
Craig Porter Jr.
Craig Porter Jr.
Certified
Craig Porter
baller.
Jr. is good at basketball. That's just something we got to say. Cover our bases. If you didn't know it, you know it now. Just know Craig Porter Jr. is good at basketball. Solid passer. Sometimes he gets hot from three, and I'm like, woo, here we go. I'm going to watch the Craig Porter Jr. show. The dude's got a clip in the mid-range. He is a mid-range bucket. He's a great defender too. I really like watching Craig Porter Jr. I think my biggest knock on him is just like you're playing 13 minutes a game.
Well, that's the thing. I think if he was on a team that wasn't the Cavs and that didn't have like so many like little guards, like he would be an all rookie player this year. Like
for sure.
He's
for
good,
sure.
dude.
Victim
like,
of circumstance.
I think he's good enough where they could probably get rid of. No, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if they make the Darius Garland trade for like a forward that fits Donovan Mitchell better, and like Craig Porter Jr. is the backup point guard, like they'd be pretty good. They'd be in a pretty good spot. I think Porter Jr. he's going to be an awesome backup point guard in the NBA.
Absolutely. Another shout out, Jordan Hawkins. You know, when I made my video about him, he was doing really, really well. He was getting playing time. His playing time's kind of inconsistent. The defense is inconsistent would be kind of a compliment. It's rough sometimes. Sometimes he looks like he's holding his own. Sometimes completely different story. Offensively, you know, he will be good. He's just not there yet, and I wouldn't have him in this discussion.
Right now, out of what are we at? 200, and this goes back to the first question that was asked today about defense first player, no offense, offense first player, no defense. Right now, out of 246 players, our good friend Jordan Hawkins is 10th in the league in 3-point attempts per 100, which I think is one of the best indicators of spacing. So already giving you a lot of spacing. So he'll find his way out. He'll play NBA minutes for a long time. For
a good team. Like I think next year he will be a major part of the Pelicans. It's just this year, especially like once Jose Alvarado came back, you know, someone was going to lose minutes, and, you know, Jordan Hawkins plays like 20 a game. And I think as their injury woes have kind of shored up until recently, unfortunately, Brandon Miller got hurt last night, which sucks. But
Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram. Sorry. All the rookie talk is making my head spin. But yeah, Jordan Hawkins, shout out to him. Anyone else you want to shout out before we kind of put a bow tie on all this?
You said Duop, right? Our guy.
Yes. Shout out him. He's got a strap from three. He can shoot that thing very well.
You know, he can ghost, like he can be the ghost screener. Like I've seen clips of him. It's pretty sick. I don't think we talk enough about that, about what he is. He's like a 29-year-old rookie. So I guess that's why he loses some of his luster. We said Vasil Micic, Keontae George, Julian Strawther, like same vein as Jordan Hawkins. I love Michael Malone as a coach. I really question why he's not giving him more minutes. He had a really good run, got hurt, now he's kind of been out of the lineup. And I feel like he could be pretty useful to them, especially with like Jokic and DHO stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because he had like some good flashes at the beginning of the year, and then he just like stopped getting meaningful playing time. So yeah, I'm with you. Anyone else?
I'll say three guys. You kind of mentioned one of them in a positive light, but I'm a little bit lower on him recently. Three guys who were drafted pretty highly, or at least seen as like lottery picks coming into the draft, that I've kind of been underwhelmed with this season, just to keep an eye on. I'm not going to rule them out, but we talked about Scoot Henderson, a little bit worried about him. Bilal Coulibaly, the more I study these other forwards, I get more and more worried about him. And then lately, I don't know, Cam Whitmore's, especially after seeing like what Gigi Jackson can do. Like Gigi Jackson's like souped up Cam Whitmore. And so I'm kind of lower on him now.
Yeah, I think with a lot of like the Cam Whitmore of it all, it's like we got to tailor expectations for what he's going to be. Cause like what he can do and what you want him doing on a team that is trying to compete, the answers to what he can do and what you want him to do are completely different. So it's a question of like, does Cam Whitmore get to the point where he does a lot of what you want him to do rather than what he can do? Because that team doesn't necessarily need what he can do, which is a very circumstantial thing. And then there's still some issues with what he can and can't do right now. So, yeah, I think that's totally fair. But it sounds like our first team is Wemby, Chet, Brandon Miller, Jaime Jaquez, Brandin Podziemski. Second team, and these are no order, by the way, particularly for second team. First team, I think, was in rough order. Second team, Kaysen Wallace, Gigi Jackson, Marcus Sasser, Derek Lively, and Amen Thompson. Does that sound right?
Sounds beautiful.
I'm pretty comfortable with that list. I think, people are welcome to take issue with it. But also just remember that this is kind of a right now list, not necessarily forward facing. Forward facing would look vastly different. Maybe we'll do that in another episode. But I definitely value, if you're a rookie and you come in and you're contributing to winning in your rookie season, that moves the needle for me. Obviously there's some exceptions, like Gigi Jackson and Marcus Sasser aren't necessarily contributing to winning right now, but there's like a clear blueprint for them to do so, which is what's important to me.
I mean, like, I know we're dragging on all this, but like, it's like, look at like Jalen Williams and Keegan Murray last year. I watched them and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, their upside is not as high as like Jaden Ivey, Ben Math, Shaden Sharp, but they're already like so much closer to being productive players than they are. Like, why not just bet on that? Like, that's like another thing I look at this is like, why, like, it's mathematically, it's so much more likely that they just continue to be productive players than X tantalizing guy who jumps out of the gym like once every week, develops into the next Michael Jordan or not, like Vince Carter type player or whatever.
Right.
So that's just like another thing to think about. One other thing I wanted to say, you said you're welcome to disagree with us. You are also welcome to comment in the YouTube section or on Spotify or tweet us what your all rookie teams would be, because I'm actually really curious to see what the temperature is on this current subject.
Yeah, see how far off we are. And if you do disagree with us vehemently, 1, tell us in the comments. 2, tell us nicely, because we'll happily talk about basketball with you. But yeah, don't let's keep it civil, because this can be a charged topic, but there's no need for it to be. It's just fun at the end of the day to talk about basketball. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, follow us, leave a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. If you're watching on YouTube, like I said, subscribe, leave a like, all that stuff. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at AlexHoops_, at Mat Issa 15. That's MATISSA 15. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.